All right. Good evening, everyone. This is your host, Alaysha, the Warrior Queen, and we are live with Warriors Thriving live podcast talk show. And tonight is episode 10, featuring one of my new friends and colleagues in the coaching space. It's Vicki Dow. So, Vicki, welcome to our podcast tonight. How are you?
Oh, I want to tell you what an honor it is to be here. An absolute honor. I've listened to all the replays of the other 9 podcasts. I am humbled to be a part of this. I truly am. The conversations that you are having are beautiful, needed, and every single person I listen to, I got something from, and amazing.
Yes.
And I'm humbled. I'm humbled to be a part of
And
this.
I'm honored to be with you tonight, Vicki. We have been in some of the same coaching spaces. So again, we had a previous conversation and we connected so well.
Yep.
And again, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. So with that, let's go into why did you accept the invitation? What was about it that drew you to this podcast?
I was, when I first saw what you were doing, I believe it was right at the beginning that I saw you do a Facebook Live about it. And I thought, I want to support her because this is needed. And we both have similar circumstances. I didn't have domestic abuse, but sexual abuse growing up. So I had the trauma and it affects you in your life. And so I wanted to, my goal is to bring hope, especially to women, that no matter your past, you can still have a healthy, loving relationship.
Yes, that's beautiful. And I can't wait to get into, your topic tonight, because I know that you have such a beautiful relationship and experience with your own husband, and can't wait to hear more about that, because I think that's just so special. Like, I don't want to steal your thunder. I'll let you tell your own story.
Okay.
But I just, I was so moved and inspired by what you guys have built together, and as husband and wife team, in helping and impacting so many people. So we'll learn more about that with Vicki in a moment. Vicki, where are you from?
I live outside of Chicago, about 40 miles west of Chicago in a suburb. And my husband and I have 7 children here and 3 in heaven. And we have 2 granddaughters. So
wow. How old are they, the grands?
My grands are 2 and 4.
Ah, sweet age.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Wow. And what would you say your profession is? Like, what is it that you do?
I am a coach. And so I'm certified as a master coach, and then I'm also a certified clinical EFT practitioner. And the reason that I love sharing that modality in my coaching sessions is because it works. So when we have trauma, it's important to talk about it, but the trauma is registered in our nervous system. So if you don't address what's going on in your body and you just talk about it, you don't get as good of results to overcome it, because whatever is going on in your nervous system will trump whatever goes on in your brain. And that's why a lot of people think, oh, why am I sabotaging myself? Or I have every good intention. They vow that they're going to do this and this, and then they get nervous about something, or they feel it in their, or you may not even be conscious of what you're feeling. Because a lot of times, now this is for sexual abuse survivors. So if it's not for domestic abuse, I don't know that. But for sexual abuse survivors, we dissociate a lot. So we don't have a relationship with our bodies. And so one thing that I do try to bring awareness to is what is going on with your body. Do you get colds a lot? Are you having trouble sleeping? Does your knee go out? Do you, what physical things go on? Because a lot of times the people that I, work with, they think, oh, it's not my past that's causing the problems now. It's, it's my husband who's the jerk, or it's my boss who's the problem. And they don't understand that oftentimes when we are triggered and have a reaction, it's not because of what's happening now, it's because of what it's reminding us of what did happen that we haven't fully processed. An EFT, or emotional freedom technique, is an amazing tool to neutralize that reaction, calm our nervous system down, keeps the blood in your brain, allows you to make conscious, good decisions. And so, yeah, that was a long answer to what I do, but
No,
yeah.
that's beautiful. And I'm glad that you explained what EFT was, because it's, we always talk about dis-ease, for disease, and that's what's stored in our nervous system. So I think it's true for any trauma victim.
Okay.
So in addition to sexual assault survivors, domestic abuse survivors, or anyone surviving something so traumatic, I think it's, so
well, it definitely is registered in your DNA. And what happens is when we feel something, when we feel fear, when we don't feel safe, it registers in our nervous system. Our amygdala, that part of your brain, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. It's not just fight or flight anymore. It's freeze or fawn. The more research has come out, those are, it's expanding. And those are automatic responses, that happen. So what tapping does, you tap gently on points on your face and your torso, and it registers at your nervous system, sends a calming signal to the amygdala, that part of your brain. It keeps the blood in your brain, and it's like you just calm down, and then you can think clearly. So, yeah.
Wow. So I would love to have you come back and maybe do a session with our women to show that
would love it.
Works. Yeah.
They
so
actually, we can do
on that.
Tapping, group tapping circles, they call them, but everybody could have an intention. And then I work with one person who's willing to kind of be the voice. Not that you're speaking for everyone, but I work one-on-one with that person. But what happens is everybody taps along with me and the other person. And by the end of the session, everybody's issues get cleared, even though they didn't consciously voice stuff, but just by the brain is so amazing how it takes what I talk about with one person and you can process your own stuff at the same time. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
So we already know why you're here today. So again, thank you for joining us. But I want to now go back and really unpack, because as you said, you're a sexual abuse survivor. Let's talk a little bit about your past. What was it like prior to your trauma and then moving into that trauma? Where were you in the past?
Well, the tricky thing is I had repressed memories until 17 years into our marriage. I had no conscious memories. I knew some things were off. I even went to a free counselor at one point after I had my second child. And I said, I feel like something's wrong with me, but I don't know what it is. I feel like it's something sexual, and I feel like it has something to do with my dad, but I had nothing. And so the only things I had, I'll be honest in this situation, but when my husband and I would be together, sometimes I would watch the clock and be like, when is it going to be over? Now, keep in mind, this was not an abusive situation. It just was, I wasn't fully into the whole bodily sensations of intimacy at that time because of my past trauma. And so it was but who talks about that? Is it normal for me to not have an orgasm or to take 45 minutes or an hour, or whatever? Is it normal that you look at the clock and wait and just wait for it to be over? That I didn't know that wasn't normal.
Exactly.
And I actually, for me, sex was better when I was pregnant, because I was born and raised Catholic, and there was this belief set that your body, and all of this contributed, that my body wasn't my own, that, it was for my husband, it was for my kids, it was God's, it belonged to the Holy Spirit, temple of the Holy Spirit. I never owned my body until 5 or 6 years ago, really embedded that fact. So then to answer your question, I don't remember what before abuse was like. So when my memories came back, what I can trace right now was my grandfather molested me when I was 5.5 at Christmas. And I told my mother what happened. And she told me, I can picture her, you're a bad girl. Don't you ever do anything like that. Don't you ever say anything like that ever again. Okay, so 5 years old, you got a kindergartner that's told that I'm the bad girl. Don't you ever say anything like that again. Then I had this memory of my dad coming up my dress at Easter the following year. So like 6 years old or 5.5 still. Well, in my head, you're a bad girl. Don't you ever say anything like that ever again. I never said anything. One of the memories that came back was my kindergarten teacher said, when I came back from Christmas break, she said, something's wrong with Vicki. Well, within a month, I had totally repressed the memory. And so I had no memories. And then another memory that came up. And so it's like all these, I had these signals, but when I had this fear of masks, like scary, like, and I don't know if this is for domestic abuse also, but for sexual abuse survivors, we have a very high alert radar status thing going on. And so we're easily startled. Okay.
Yeah.
And, huge startle reflex. Like, it's like my poor family, they know that they have to announce themselves. Like if I'm like in a room and they'll be like, Mom, I'm coming down the stairs. I mean, my husband will be like, Vicki, I'm home. He'll come in the front door and bang his feet just so they don't startle me, because I literally will like, and then just start crying. And, it's gotten better, but I had this fear of masks where for me, it was like, I saw these, all I could see was the eyes, and it freaked me out. Well, after a memory came back, one of my dad was the fire chief of our local town, and he had been back from a fire and he had soot all over his face, and all I could see was his eyes. Now, doesn't that make perfect sense in the reality of it when you put all the pieces together? But all of that time, I didn't know what that was. So, so the abuse went on from 5.5 off and on. I don't have full memories. I don't have barely any memories of my childhood. And then, so I think with my dad, it was high school. And then I was raped on a date. I had a date rape drug, put in my drink, and raped on a date at 18. So, I don't have any memory and actually I have, how they talk about pre-womb stuff, like you have that sensation. Obviously you don't have words as an infant, but I had this sense that my mother didn't want me. I was the second child that she conceived out of wedlock. And she ended up marrying my dad. The irony of it, so she had a baby that she gave up for adoption. She's from Iowa. So, Iowa town, shame. They sent her away to have the baby. She didn't even have a lot of memories about it. And that girl found us about 30 years ago. And we are since close. However, my mom still has a hard time with her. And I found out from her that her father was a sexual addict. My dad, I believe, was a sexual addict. And I found out when we first were married, my husband, that he was into mild pornography. And he stopped it immediately when we connected dots. But it's like you how you continue the cycle kind of a thing. And all part of that journey was I was seeing a counselor at the time. I've done tons of different healing body stuff and talk therapy and different counseling. And at the time, I felt like I was this landing page for all this information within my family. And I was able to trace sexual abuse back that I can document with personal testimony 80 years. So I'm sure it went back more, but I traced it back 80 years. And so I stood up and I said, and I was like, this is done. I'm not, no more secrets, no more pretending we have this big, happy family. Everybody for the last 80 years has taken swept everything under the rug. We got this huge mound of whatever. And I proverbially took the rug and opened it up while I was blacklisted by the entire family. I was the one who had the problem. How dare I, how dare I shame or give their father a bad name, my mother and her brothers and sisters. How dare I do that? And why don't I just keep my silence? And what's the matter with me? And I've been ostracized. And now it's been over 10 years since I sent the letter, because what I decided to do, and this was much prayer and with working with a counselor, I wanted everybody to have the same information about the same time. And I only sent it to my blood relatives, this letter that says, I have memories of my grandfather doing things to me. And that letter was ripped apart. I got shit on for not making personal phone calls. And I said to one of them, I said, really? What if you were call number 7 and, somebody else was call number 12? You don't think you guys would be on the phone to each other? And then I'd get shit on because I didn't do it all at the same time. It was a lose-lose situation. But that's what I chose to do. And I also only told my blood relatives. So if I only told like the brothers and sisters of my mother, because I thought if they want to keep the secret with their spouse, that's their business. But this is done. We're done keeping secrets. And I've been breaking their rules in that family now, and people don't want anything to do with me. For example, I had a couple of my cousins come forward after that letter and say that that an uncle had abused them at one point. And, a sibling had abused another sibling. And I was just like, wow. And nobody's talking about it. And so when this one uncle he scared me all growing up. Like I was so afraid of this guy. And they had a very big family, him and my aunt. And, but I just never liked him. And then I found out that he was one of the abusers. I didn't go to his funeral. And boy, oh boy, my sister stopped talking to me. My mom was not happy with me. It was like, wow, what about me? What about me?
Wow. Thank you, sister, for sharing, because that's deep, right? And I think you're not alone, right? Every family have these kinds of secrets that they sweep under the rug, and you can trace back years and years and years, right? And it's sad because that's how the cycle keeps continuing every generation.
Yes.
Until somebody brave enough, courageous enough to break that silence and to break that curse, right? And so I applaud you for taking a courageous stand and, at the risk of, like you said, being blacklisted, being ostracized, and but enough is enough. Like in other words, eventually somebody would realize, or someone is probably saying, what a relief, right? Someone is probably saying that they might not say it out loud, but someone is probably saying that.
I've actually never thought of that, but that's an interesting thing.
Yeah. They're not going to say it because no one wants to be put in the limelight like that. But I bet someone is thanking God for you to speak out like that, and someone in your family. Because once you speak out, right, we know, like once you break that silence, we break the violence, because all of these things happen in the darkness, in keeping the victim under control by keeping them silent. And so the moment when somebody starts to speak up, that's when things start to unravel for the abuser. So again, I applaud you for being as courageous as you did, to have, the guts. Like it took guts and strength and all, I'm sure, every fortitude within you to be able to stand against that. So congratulations on being able to do that. Now the fallout, something different, right? And I don't know what you were doing or might do to restore those relationships if you care to, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a key thing. Ooh, I'm getting an echo. Is that me? It's a tricky thing because they act like nothing happened. So it's been 10, 11 years since I sent the letter, and now they're all back to acting like everything's great. But we haven't had a conversation about it. I've gotten no apology from anyone about sorry what you went through. And so that's why, and just a little aside, I did confront my father too. And I was working with a counselor at the time. I wrote out what I wanted to say to him. My husband was in the room and I almost passed out. Like it was so like unnerving. I didn't know tapping at the time. And I literally never been so close to just passing out. And I said to him that I had sexual abuse memories come back. And it just he knew about the letter that I sent. And I said, you probably heard about the letter that I sent about grandpa. He's like, yeah, you pissed a lot of people off with that. And I thought, I'm your daughter. I just said that I was sexually abused by my grandfather. And that's your response to me is you piss people off.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. So I said, well, I have these memories. His response to me was, I never did anything to hurt you or anyone else for that matter. And if I did, why would I admit it? That was his response. And he got up and he said, it was right around Thanksgiving. And he said to Tom, he said, if you guys change your mind and want to come to Thanksgiving, let me know. He shook my husband's hand and walked out the door. And I haven't spoken to him since. And I don't plan to. I pray for him. But and here's the sickness in it that gets passed down. The last time my mother was in town, she said, Vicki, have you reached out to your father? And I said, no. She goes, you know, he does love you. And I said, you are aware of what he did to me, right? You remember what he said to me. Well, Vicki, he loves you. I know he does. And I said, I can't even believe you're saying this to me. And I said, no, unless he apologizes and admits what he did, I want nothing to do with him. I am done acting like nothing has ever happened. I'm done. And so they're all pretending. So in that realm, I can't do those relationships. I can't do that. And that's why Tom and I are so passionate, because if I didn't have him and my kids supporting me, especially him, I would not be able to stay strong and be convicted in the truth and in my decisions. And I will say that I am very connected with God. So I'm very open. If something would shift and change, I'm open to it, but I am not searching anything out. I've blocked all of them on Facebook and, social media. I'm not interested in acting like everything is cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, you have to honor yourself, right? You have to care enough for yourself to choose you. And that's what you did, Vicki. And you can't pretend anymore. This is not what was done was not right. And like you said, even no one wants to admit it. Like that's not honoring you. And I'm sure you don't feel safe with these people.
Oh, I don't. You're right.
Right. And so,
yeah.
So I think you had to do what you needed to do to care for you.
Yeah.
Your heart, your mind, your spirit, and your body. Right.
And there's been a grieving process because I lost all of my extended family. Gone. No more cousins, no more aunts and uncles on both sides. Yeah. So there's a huge loss there. So there is a grieving process. But if I didn't have my husband, he calls himself the oak tree. I don't know. I don't know where I'd be, seriously, because of his grounding almost daily.
Yeah. So let's unpack right there, because, as when the listeners listen to this and those who may resonate with your story, what if they don't have an oak tree?
Yeah.
What would you recommend?
And see, that's what I want to do, the caveat, because I've listened to all the other podcasts, and some of the stuff that I'm saying here, may not resonate with them because they're not at that place, because I don't want them to create or stay in something because they think they should and whatever. This is a healthy relationship that has hiccups. Nothing is perfect. But so if they do not have a Tom, let me tell you, a girlfriend or this organization, I like I said before, the fellowship that's in this tribe is amazing.
It is.
In
a short time too.
Because it helps you reinforce that you're not crazy, that it's not in your head.
That's right.
And to be like, wow. And gosh, I got gems from every single person that shared, but they talked about not being alone. Jean, he brought up those, he brought up the four things that happen in trauma, shame, guilt. He talked about like, it is what it is. He had a word for it. And then he talked about, you feel like you're the only one being alone. And so to connect with a tribe that can help keep you strong, especially when you feel weak, oh, really, it isn't really that bad. I'm guessing it's stuff that, and even for me, oh, well, is it that bad? They just treat me like shit most of the time, but they do love me. Do they? I mean, you can tell yourself all kinds of crap.
Yeah.
And so to have people speak truth to you with love, but have that connection of similar experience.
Yes, beautiful. I gotta agree with you. This tribe is amazing, and the women,
you've done a beautiful thing.
So powerful. Well, I give credit where credit is due, and I know that God has attracted these women in this circle of influence, and I know I prayed about that, right? Because again, creating this idea of a 1 million strong warrior women thriving global movement, right? I was like, God, I don't know what's on the other side of this movement. What is this movement? What am I doing? And then he kept showing me Dr. Martin Luther King's
one step
quote, having blind faith is taking the first step without seeing the entire staircase. And when I embodied that, like fully embraced it, and I was able to just keep moving, I said, God will reveal one step, like you said, at a time, the next and the next and the next. And so I don't have to worry myself about the full staircase and what's on top of it, what's on side of the door, on the other side. I don't have to worry about that. And what I can tell you, Vicki, when I let go of having to be in control of knowing what was going on, I can operate in this very moment. And the women are just so connected. Like I'm getting connected with them. They're connecting with each other. And it's happening quicker than I expected, right? Because no one really knew each other. Everyone's coming in from different places that I organically friended and connected with. So it's just a beautiful thing to see and to really watch what happens from there. But we don't know who's going to be listening on the replays. And so anyone can resonate with your story, sister. So I'm sure there's women out there who will and indeed get something out of what we're sharing tonight. So we talked a lot about the past. We got a good understanding of where you came from. So let's talk about transformation. Like, when you decided enough was enough, what was that healing journey like? What was that process like?
I was committed to be better. But the pivotal point for me was I was tempted to want to be alone. And I've found that and this is where kind of the stories are different from you guys, from domestic abuse and sexual abuse. We experience sexual abuse alone, and so we think we have to heal alone. And we think, now this is the caveat, that we're in a decent relationship, that our husband does love us, but maybe, you feel uncomfortable talking to him, or he doesn't say the right thing, so you get triggered. So that's the caveat, is that it's a healthy relationship, that that you guys love each other. I just really want to make that clear and not let anybody misunderstand me that you should stay in a bad relationship because this is possible. You know what I mean? That's not what I'm saying. We found that the people that we end up working with, you know, you talk about the organic connections, the people we end up working with, they love each other, and it was good for a while. And then it, you know, was hard. So for me, the pivotal point is when I realized and decided that Tom wasn't the enemy. It was all of this shit that I have to process and heal from. That was the enemy. And I would ask him, I remember laying in bed one day. I mean, I would over and over at night, I wished one of us would die in our sleep because the pain was so bad. And I was tired of trying. And I wasn't going to kill myself, but I just wished one of us would die. If heaven's up there and it's great, just let me be there. I'm just tired. And I would lay there listening to him breathe and thought, well, one of us would die. We got a decent insurance policy, you know. I mean, this was like bad. And he wasn't doing anything bad to me. Okay. It was just hard to be reliving a memory and to be processing it and try to heal through it and then take care of 6 kids, you know, in a household. And so when the day I decided, you know what, do I really want to be alone? What if we got a divorce? I played it out. I'd be by myself. We got 6 kids living below poverty level. Really? That would be the answer. Okay. And who is Tom really? And I stepped out of myself for a moment and thought, okay, this guy is kind. He's loving. He's an amazing father. He's gentle with me, respectful of me. He's exactly the guy I wanted to marry. He was literally my dream man, yet I want him to die in his sleep and I want to be alone. And I thought, wait a minute, he's not the enemy. It's all of that stuff. And so then I would make decision after decision to share with him, even when it was hard, even when I didn't feel like it, to get him on the same page with me. So he knew it wasn't his fault. He was walking around on eggshells for years, not knowing what he would say or do that would set me off. And of course, I thought I was handling everything fine. But until I can't even tell you how many husbands that Tom has talked with that have shared, thank you for your insight. I've been walking around on eggshells. And they usually see it first, the fact of what her past, how it's showing up. They usually see that. The husbands do. And the wives are like, no, it's my boss. It's the kids. It's the stress. It's the money problems. It's you. And it's not. And so that was the pivotal moment that I would come home and I would share the hard stuff with him. And I would go to a counseling session and I would come home and share with him what I talked about and what came up. You know, I would have I did prayer healing and stuff like that. And I would tell him what came up. And when memories would surface, I would tell him what came up. And he was so grateful because it helped him understand and be even more respectful, because we went through a long time where he didn't touch me. He was so respectful, intimacy wise, we were distant. Not bad, but he was so respectful because I was such in that moment. When we did start becoming intimate again, we obviously we had 10 children, right? So, but when it did come again, I had a flashback at one point and I said, stop. And he's like, what? I said, okay, you didn't do anything. It's what was in my mind. And he just held me and stopped. But you have to tell them they're not mind readers. He doesn't know if he did something and all of a sudden I freak out. All he knows is that he did something and I freaked out. So I have to speak more. I have to share more if I want to keep this relationship strong. And let me tell you, I no longer wish one of us would die. We have hard times, but they're so few and far between. Oh my goodness. We would go days without speaking. I got the best thespian award in high school, actress. Thank you very much. I could ignore him for days. Someone would come to the front door and I'd be like, hey, how you doing? And that person would leave and I would go back to treat him like shit. And that just ripped his heart out. But he was committed to being there for me. And I started honoring his commitment to me, and I would apologize to him for how hard it was. And I would thank him for being there for me and being patient with me and honoring him, saying, I know how hard it is for you, and I'm sorry about that. And so we just developed this greater bond than I ever thought was possible because of my commitment and awareness that it's not him. And I have to take the uncomfortable action to share with him so that he sees the whole picture, because it really does help.
And I think, right there, what you said, Vicki, about sharing and communicating with your partner, I think that's across the board for any trauma, because same thing with, domestic violence. I was coaching a young lady yesterday, and she was saying, something that happened to her. It was a DV case, and so traumatized by it, and just by the mere fact that I was talking to her on the phone, she was just in tears, and she got to her current boyfriend's house and, said, I want you to just meet him and, just see who he is. He can see who's helping me. And it was just so beautiful, though, to be able to share, because what she realized is if she didn't heal, right? And again, DV, if she didn't heal this, it's going to, as her word said, draw a wedge between her and her current boyfriend now, or relationship. And the one thing that I told her, and this is what I would tell anyone, you can't love someone else if you don't first love yourself. That's the first thing. We got to get back to a place of self-love. The other thing, I love what you said, because if you do have a partner, you have to allow them in, let the wall down and allow them in and share what's going on. And I love what you said about patience. Like for me, when I meet someone, I talk about that. Like, I have a wall up sometimes, and I ask for patience. Let me feel comfortable enough with you. I love to communicate and I love to share, so that's not an issue. But let me just feel comfortable enough to get to that space. But I need to feel safe.
You got to build trust.
You have to build trust in that relationship. And I need to be safe to be vulnerable. So I just love what you said, because it just reminded me of that conversation I had with a young lady yesterday. And she acknowledged that she became aware that if she didn't do anything about what she was dealing with from her past, and I told her, I said, it's like looking at the rearview mirror. I said, what's going to happen if you're in a car and you constantly looking in your rearview mirror? She said, eventually I will crash. I said, absolutely. I said, so take that analogy and apply it to your life, right? Eventually, whatever's in front of you, you're going to hit the wall, because you need to be able to open up. So thank you for sharing that. And I've heard you speak about your relationship in the past, like when we talked before, and sometimes in our spaces of, how your relationship with your husband evolved, and it's such a beautiful thing. So I'm still striving to get to a space like that where I can have this loving relationship where I feel safe and build that type of trust and, unconditional love, right? Because I have done self-work myself, and this is for any woman out there. You have to do that work, the self-work. And I do want to ask you, Vicki, I know a lot of women talk about the counseling, and it's just kind of like keeping them in the past. What would you say about counseling versus coaching? Is both necessary? Is one better than the other? Like, what would you say?
I would say, I don't know if it's specifically counseling and coaching. Do something that addresses what's going on in your nervous system, whatever that is. It could be breathing techniques. It could be Reiki. It could be, Wim Hof breathing. It could be, there's an Alexander method, EFT tapping. you've got to address what's going on in your nervous system. There is a lot of practitioners, like counselors, that are becoming certified in EFT. So that could be a good option. So I can't really say if a coach or a counselor is better. I will tell you, the people that Tom and I have worked with, because we have the background, we have the experience, they said they've gotten more from working with us in an hour than 6 months at a counselor. Because, okay, I'm going to be respectful. People who have book smarts, congratulations. But if you do not have the life experience that you can really empathize with what's going on and what actually helped you get through it, it's not as effective. But if you do not address what's going on in your body, I think you're not going to get as good results. I think it's something that is not, because here's what happens. And you know this, when you think about something and you talk about it, that's your reality. That's what you reinforce. That's the energy that you're putting out there. I heard you talk about this in another podcast.
Tony Robbins.
Yes. And so what you want to be doing, and this is the beauty of tapping. It's called rant and tap, but you can, and the idea with tapping is you talk about everything negative that's going on, that you feel, that you see, that you hate. But if you do it while you're tapping, it's clearing it out so that the new healthier thoughts can land, that you can bring those in. They say there's 2 major organizations in the United States that really promote tapping. The Tapping Solution, if you Google them, and actually if you go to my website, I have a tapping page, and there's all research on tapping. It's clinically proven. There's tons of meta-analysis and analysis done on it. Huge amount of research going on. So the Tapping Solutions on the East Coast, actually they're in Connecticut. It's a family that runs it, and they have an app that has tapping meditations in the app. And then on the West Coast is EFT Universe, and Dawson Church heads that up, and he runs a certification, and that's who I was certified through. And he does the clinical based on the scientific research. So they say that you can't clean house until you see the dirt. By airing the dirt while you're tapping, it releases it, it neutralizes it. Because here's the thing too, if you just talk, have you heard of toxic positivity? Have you heard of that term?
No, tell me about it.
Toxic positivity is this mentality that I only can say things that are positive because I want to have that energy. I want to have that vibe. Okay. So toxic, but the reason they call it toxic positivity, and I was one of them way back before I learned tapping. You're just pushing down what's in there. You're pushing down what you really believe, or you're pushing down the pain that's really there. But by using some sort of breathing technique or body work of some sort, that's what releases all the negative. You got to get it out of there. But people that are like, I'm only going to talk positive in my life, they're just pushing down, and that's going to manifest. Those are the people with stomach ulcers. Those are the people with headaches. They can't sleep at night because all they're trying to do is be positive all the time because, oh, I'm supposed to attract that. Well, when you do body work, and see, I keep saying EFT, I love it because you can do it on your own. It's helpful until you're really comfortable with it to do it with a practitioner, but you can literally do it on your own. You can get that app. They've got free meditations in the app, and you can do the app on your own. I do it every single morning. I do tapping every single morning off the app. But
say that name again for our listeners.
thetappingsolution.com, and they have the information, but the app is called the Tapping Solution. So if you go in the app store or whatever, you just look it up and you'll see it, and there's a paid version and a free version, so you could try it. But the idea is honor how you truly feel, but when you do it while you're tapping, it's releasing it, and then you can bring in what you really want. And you were talking about attracting, the man that you want. And this is all about faith. It's about holding the vision of what you want, because what happens is you can't believe with your eye. No, you can't just focus on what you see with your eyes. And you know all this, I know that. You have to create the vision for what you want. And only when you can picture it and believe that it's here, your brain doesn't know if it's happening now or if you're imagining it, right? And so like you can do this with anything, but if you're looking at, once you're in a healthier place and you're looking for a healthy relationship, picture how you want to feel when he comes in the house. Picture what it feels like when you guys, Casey had that kiss. She had that poem about kissing.
Yes.
So that was like, wow. So you could like listen to that poem if you want, and to get that going, the more you can feel and picture the man you want, and then give it to God. But don't just say, oh, I don't have him here, then it's not going to happen. It won't, because you don't believe it will. So you just keep believing that it's coming, and God knows what's best for you. I really believe that God has a plan of goodness for all of us. And we're the ones who block the blessings.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you picture? What do you want? And how do you want to feel when you're in that relationship? And the more real you can make it, the sooner it will happen. And so, and it probably will be better than you even picture, which is beautiful. But what we end up doing is, I wrote a couple things down. If you don't believe it's possible, because it has never been your experience, every guy you've been in a relationship with ended up treating you like shit. So there's no good guys out there. That could be a belief that you have because of your experience. So perhaps draw on the belief of your friends. Draw on the belief that there is good men out there. I'm married to one. I know a whole bunch of them. Believe other people's truth until you can believe it yourself. Because it's hard when you've been burned over and over and over, but only when you change that will something different happen, right? And I've seen this also happen. You end up meeting a good guy, but the blame and shame is there. You don't deserve it. So you do something to sabotage the relationship. And it was awesome because I was sitting, my kids were playing volleyball, and we, just Park District volleyball, and me and my husband go and watch them and support him. And one of the other kids on the team's friend of one of my sons, he brought his girlfriend there, his new girlfriend. She ended up sharing with me in the bleachers during the game that she was sexually abused when she going, as a teen. And I know who she's dating right now. The kid is awesome. Okay. And I said, and look at how God is looking out for you to bring this guy into your life. We'll call him Bob. We'll bring Bob into your life. And I said, I bet a part of you thinks you don't deserve a relationship with Bob. She goes, how did you know that? I said, here's the thing. Don't try to sabotage it. Watch what you're doing, because, and we're sitting in the bleachers. I can't do a full coaching session, right? But the idea was, I was able to call things out for her. They're still together. It's been, I think, a year, and they're still together. And they have a great relationship. And so I called her out on what she may be doing, even though she kind of knew she was doing it, but I knew what it was like for her. And I just tried to really build her up that she did deserve this. And, to not be in agreement with beliefs that tell her she doesn't deserve it. Because as you know, we can't choose whether we think, but we can choose what to think. And so a thought can come in your head. I don't deserve this guy. He's too good for me. You know what? I don't agree with that thought. You can choose that. You can decide that's bullshit. I don't agree with that thought. And then it can come up again. You're a loser. I don't agree with that thought.
And that's what these are automatic negative thoughts, and our brains go there, especially in the aftermath of any type of trauma, right?
Mhm.
So what I asked you to really speak to is, when these thoughts come up for women, and you already just kind of named one way in which they can address it, to say you're not in agreement with those thoughts, what else can they do though? Because sometimes women don't really know what they're experiencing. They can't put a name on it, right? They don't know how to name it, what they're feeling. And then they start feeling, worthless, and shame, guilt, pain, all blame, all of that, right? The negative, disempowering thoughts. So what do you recommend that they do when these things, aside from saying they don't agree with it, because that may not be enough for some women, right? They haven't gotten the mindset shifts yet. So what else can they do?
So what they're believing is lies, right? Any thoughts that say, you don't deserve it, it's your fault, you're the cause, whatever, okay? Those are lies. So how do you counter lies? With truth. So I invite them to find sources of truth for them that would help them in their belief. So different people, maybe it's a song, the song about Firework by Katy Perry. I actually created a playlist. It's called my empowering playlist. You know what? Let me read a couple songs on there that might resonate with a couple of people. But I started doing exactly what you brought up. Music, there we go. And empowering me. The Fight Song by Rachel Platten. This is my fight song. Okay. Brave by Sarah Bareilles.
Yeah.
A Million Dreams by Pink. Roar by Katy Perry. Stand in the Light, Jordan Smith. I like The Climb, Miley Cyrus. So some of this is, other people may not resonate with it. Shake It Off, Taylor Swift. Rise, Katy Perry. Titanium, Madeline Bradley. I Will Survive, Gloria Gaynor. Superwoman, Alicia Keys. Brand New Me, Alicia Keys. I Hope You Dance, Leanne Romack. I'm getting goosebumps. Fighter, Christina Aguilera. Who Says, Selena Gomez. Stronger, Britney Spears. Firework, Katy Perry. Tell Your Heart to Beat Again, Danny Goki. What You're Worth, Mandisa. Shine, I love Mandisa stuff. Shame Off by Mandisa. Work of Art, Britt Nicole. So whatever, whatever thing that will bring you to truth. So maybe it's the friend that you can call and say, this is what's going in my head. I do that with my husband. So, but maybe they have a friend. Tom, I'm feeling weak right now. I have this going on in my head. He goes, okay, Vicki, let me just help you remember. And he'll feed me that. Yeah. Maybe they can journal. Maybe they could create. Okay, here's another really good thing. I have this. Take note cards and write affirmation statements on the note cards of what you want to believe. And every day when you get in your car or wherever you will see them. I used to do this, I used to substitute teach a couple of years ago. Every time I was on my way, to the school, I would do all of my affirmations. Like, I am brave. I am perseverance. I am truth. I am connected and inspired. I am compassion and mercy. Those are my statements that I tell myself. You can do statements like, create your own power statements of what you want to be believing, what you want to be second nature in your head. Right. So create note cards and say them. Now, this is where tapping helps. I'm going to bring it up again. I would do the note cards. I would tap while I was doing the note cards, because when you say empowering beliefs, you hear the part of you going, no, I'm not. No, that's not me. I can't say, why am I saying that? that will help neutralize that voice
Yeah.
while you're saying it. So, I believe that I'm breaking all of the generational patterns. And then you hear, oh, bullshit, you're part of the problem, and then you're like, no, I'm breaking the generational curses. I am doing this. I am brave. I am perseverance. I am truth. I am connected and inspired. I am forgiven and forgiving. I am compassion and mercy. I say those every single day. And so that would be another powerful way. So create a music playlist, have a friend that you can talk to, and make affirmation note cards that you can say of what you want to do. Does that help?
Oh, absolutely. And I can attest to the empowering music playlist, because that is one of the techniques that I use to, I love music. I love the arts. I love poetry, things like that. So I found music, poem, and dance to be what did it for me. So like when I hear a certain song that's very empowering and I see dance and movement to it, right? With such grace and beauty. I mean, that worked for me. And then
Beautiful.
hear poetry in motion, if you will. And it's so, it just speaks to your spirit. So that was one of the things that helped me. The affirmations, I expanded it though, because T. Harv Eker talked about affirmations, really expanding to making it more like a declaration.
Yes.
Yep. And Tony Robbins, as you know, talks about that as well. And you have, your brain is going to tell you, like you said, BS, that's not who you are. And you have to really put it in your system. And I love how you're adding the tap and the EFT, because I think that's another technique that women can use and can learn. Like you said, you could do that anywhere, right? And learn how to do that. So I can't wait till we can do a session where you come in with women to learn that, because I think it's so powerful. Everything that you were saying, and certainly, having the note cards around. I know my sister, she used to do that with the affirmations, and she put them on sticky notes, and she had them like say in the bathroom, for instance, on the mirror, around the house. And, I followed suit with something that she did, because my sister is very strong and powerful, right? But we've all come through so many different experiences in our life, some type of traumatic experience. So I didn't have the techniques. I didn't have the language, right? So now now when you do that inner work, that self-work, you've learned, and then that's what we're sharing. So again, thank you for sharing those techniques, because I know that that's going to be helpful for those. So let's move on in the essence of time. Again, you already talked about what you're doing present day. So let's talk about the compelling future. Like what are you doing now? And then what do you plan to create in the future? Because you got a lot of projects going.
I do. I have a lot of projects. If you can see behind me, I'm also an artist. I'm a mixed media artist.
Yeah,
and I found my voice through art. And so I like to do that. And so I'm not sure if that'll come in to play. I brought them just to show you. I'm also authored books. These are prayer books that I created because I actually believe, and you had a gal, and I don't remember her name, but she bravely, in my opinion, talked about how organized religion can actually do damage. Like, do you remember that episode?
Probably Yeshanda.
Yeah. She had that bun head thing. She was very vibrant, and she had two red paintings behind her. Yeah. And well, you know what? I totally agree that, in my opinion, that I was born and raised Catholic, and it can be very oppressive, and it can reinforce the guilt, like it's your fault, like stuff that you're going through is your fault, and you shouldn't call other people out. Even the 10 commandments, like for me, honor your father and mother. Well, my father sexually abused me, and my mother did not protect me. As a matter of fact, she said it was my fault. How do I honor them? I honor them by praying for them. That's what I do. That's all I do. That's where I'm at with them. But that messed me up for a long time, of that idea that gosh, this man, I'm supposed to honor this person who abused me. What does that look like? And so, but even, not, it just, anyway. So one of the things we do at Lent, during Lent before Easter, is we, reflect on Jesus's journey to Calvary, and all of the prayers I found to be very offensive. And one of them was written by Saint Ignatius of Loyola. And he said, I am yours, Father, do with me as you will. Well, for a sexual abuse survivor to be told, do with me as you will, that doesn't resonate with me at all. I don't care if he's a saint or not. It doesn't work for me. So I wrote my own. Is it going to show up? How do I get that to show up?
The background. Just tell them it is. There you go.
Anyway, so I wrote them from a place of hope.
Yeah.
Instead of breastbeating, it's my fault, you're on the cross. It's thank you. And it's all about Jesus saying over and over again, I did this because I love you, over and over. And then I wrote Getting Out of the River and Out of the River are two books. They go together, and they're about identifying and being released from toxic situations. And so what happens is, and when you were asking about a tool, this could be a good tool, because what happens is it encourages you, and it has Bible verse references. Like, is anybody, and it talks about the river being a toxic situation, but it's so normal for you. It's all you know. And so for me, it was incest, but, and I went to the banks, and the lifeguard was there, symbolic of Jesus, right? Well, I got out of the river, but I kept wanting to go back in because people I loved were there. Well, when I was away from the bank, when I would come back to the banks, the stench was so bad, I couldn't be there very long. Once you're out of it, and then you look back and see it, it's like, whoa, how did I live with that? But what's really cool is there's a 30-day journal that goes with it, and it has Bible verses which speak truth. For example, Getting Out of the River, you were running well. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? So are other people are like keeping you in this bad relationship, or other people keeping you in this negative situation or a negative relationship, and so it just draws on Bible verses and truth. And I wrote this with a psychologist. So that's what I'm working on. So I'm very creative and expressive. So, and my husband and I also wrote the marriage alphabet, the wife's alphabet, and the husband's alphabet. And an angle that we are taking is educating people and giving them skills, educating husbands and wives or committed couples with the skills they need to create a strong relationship. There's such a stigma with going to a counselor or going to therapy. So what if you were just going to get skills? What if you were just learning skills? And think about this. When you go to college, you go through high school, and then you either go to a trade school or your job trains you, or you go to college to learn your profession, right? Years of learning your profession, thousands of hours, right? To be successful in your career. How much training do you get to be a wife, a good husband? How much training?
No
skill development.
No preparation generally.
Right? So we want to be like teachers. We're looking at like an academy experience or something like that, where we want to take away the stigma of just giving people skills. One of the skills, I'll give you one thing. Is that okay? Where are we at on time? Oh my gosh, we're over. Okay, one tip. You can use this for any relationship, but I use it with my husband. Do what we call foundational groundwork. Lay the foundation before you have the conversation. For example, I would say to Tom, I know I'm not thinking clearly about this. I want to share with you all of these thoughts that are going on in my head. And then after I tell them, can you help me figure out a solution where I can honor what I'm feeling, but also not go off the rails and so that's foundational. Then we have the conversation. So he knows what I need from him. and he keeps quiet. He doesn't try to fix it. He
Mhm.
listens and then knows that I want to brainstorm with him to figure out the problem. So that alone, we've had people say, oh my God, I wish I would have known that.
Revolutionary. So
Yeah.
you're working with couples, saving marriages and healing and delivering folks. I love that. And I think it's very smart of you guys to approach it in that way, to destigmatize, right? This idea of counseling or therapy, but to let people know, like, you really are saving marriages, because without that foundational framework, communication, right? It's so key, but also the active listening and the communication is key, because sometimes we don't listen. We just want to say what we want to say, right? So we don't hear the other person. So I love that, just framing that conversation and what you need, especially men. They need direction, right? They want you to tell them exactly what we
Men
need.
are fix it too. Men are
Well,
fix
that's
it.
what I was going to say. They want to fix, they want to have solutions, and they don't want to, they just go straight to, okay, solution. But sometimes, right, you don't need that, right? Or you just need them to listen and then to say what you need. It's just a beautiful thing, because I'm a big fan of communication, right? And just having that open communication, but also active listening. So I applaud you on the work that you're doing with that.
Thank you.
Your journey as an author, a coach. Girl, I mean, you're doing a lot of amazing work. And I know that, when we connected initially, that we were going to find a way that we can continue to work and grow together and expand this work, because I always talk about that power of one, right? It just takes one person to have passion about certain things. And then that spark that, we're calling it the courageous spark, has been lit. And now the chain reaction has started. And now those that's already here, and like yourself and myself, we're doing the work. And it's just a matter of now connecting that chain reaction and being able to connect across the world. And it's such a beautiful sight, because it really is, unfortunately and fortunately, COVID created opportunities for us to be able to expand and grow and really have a movement around the world. So going into that, I'm going to close with asking you this question. Share your thoughts on why you think we need this idea of a warriors thriving global movement, where 1 million strong warrior women thrive, survivors thriving. Like, what does that mean to you?
I love that it's a warrior, because there is battles along the way, and it insinuates strength. And every single person that has survived domestic violence, sexual abuse, whatever trauma, are so freaking strong. They think they're weak, but actually they are so strong. And then thriving is they're creating a better life despite whatever happened to them. And so to be able to connect with all of these people who realize they're not alone, and support each other to be in healthy relationships, and to stand up and say, no more, you're not treating us like this. We deserve better, and we are better, and we are strong. And I love that.
Wow, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being a part of my global movement, my 1 million strong warrior women survivors who are thriving. And then there are some that we know who are striving to thrive, right? They're not quite there. And that's what these courageous conversations are all about, so that each and every guest that come on, you can resonate with someone's story, and you can
And
see
even if it's not a journey that's like, okay, you're thriving, you're not. There's good days and bad days for everybody, right? It's kind of up and down.
we're not quite there yet with the self-actualization. Is always right. It's to be up to the point where it's called transcendence. That's the highest pinnacle that we get to.
But levels of awareness. So it's kind of like, a journey of deeper awareness. And
absolutely. And I just love the fact that we can share hope. That's what your books are about, hope. And what this movement is about, to encourage, to empower, to inspire right? And break those generational curses and create generational abundance and new legacy of, like you said, this has got to end, enough is enough kind of thing. And we're going to stop, pull the rug up, as you stated earlier, and just uncover all the dirt. So it's a beautiful thing. How can people reach you, Vicki?
Teamdao.com is our website, teamdau.com. And you can contact me through that, or
Yeah, and I know, like, as we got some things planned already for 2023. So season 2,
wow, that sounds crazy.
But we're already starting to open up and line up for season 2, which is going to be starting in January. We're going to have this, and this is something I'm sure you'll be very interested in. We're going to have an elite mastermind for our coaches, so that we can, share and grow with one another. Next year, we're going to do a summit, so that we'll invite everyone back. Yes. And then this year at the end, someone mentioned that we should have, it was Yvonne, the one you said who prays. It was Yvonne who mentioned we should have like a reunion for all the coaches who came on in season 1. So we are going to plan just to have something where we could just, come on, celebrate that we launched this season 1 successfully, and then these are going to get replayed and reshared on the different podcast platforms. So again, sister, thank you so much. We do have a guest here, Dr. Cynthia. She always has something very powerful to say. So I do want to give her an opportunity to share something, because she always has something powerful to say. So Doc, come on, give a word.
Thank you. So you always want me to bring it home, but I embraced the opportunity, and I was totally feeling what Vicki was saying, about the importance of, believing in yourself and not accepting, a situation face value. I really feel that, and we have to stop doubting ourselves, and we have to start encouraging ourselves. And they wrote a song about that too, encourage yourself in the Lord, and the words are very powerful. Sometimes you have to encourage yourself, and you have to pat your own self on the back and embrace yourself. And this is what contributes to us as women being warriors. Sometimes you have to be your own cheerleader. You have to be your own judge and your own jury. And those are the things that set you free. So I was sitting here, and I always get fulfilled when I sit here and just listen to other people, and it just validates what I already know and believe, because I'm not going out until the Lord calls me. I'm not going to let other people gel my joy, and I'm not going to doubt myself. And I know I bring a lot to the table because of whose I am. And you have to believe in yourself. You have to know that when God created you, he didn't create no junk, and you are a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. And it's so important to have this warrior podcast, because other women need to feel the vibe, to feel our vibe, and to be in this climate, and to be in this type of environment, because to surround yourself with like-minded people. That's how you begin to break the old mold and create a new mold. And molds can be shattered. If you find that you don't fit into one particular mold, you move and make another one. And you need to be in an environment to know that you can do that. So this is why I always make it my business, to be here, because and to be able to and encourage others, because it can be done if you want it to be done.
Amen, sister.
Amen.
Do you have anything to respond to or reply to Dr. Cynthia?
Just beautiful wisdom. Yeah.
Thank you. And you have beautiful wisdom too, Vicki. You have beautiful wisdom too.
Thank you.
And keep keep sharing it.
Thank you.
People are listening even when you don't think they are.
Thank you.
Amen. So again, Dr. Cynthia, thank you so much for your share. It's
Yes,
always
yes,
to have you chime in. And
yes.
what our Warrior Women Thriving Tribe is about. So you can find us at www.warriorwomenthrivingtribe.com. So definitely come into the tribe where you will be supported, where we'll be in a supportive sisterhood, as Vicki was saying, about just being around these other women who have gone through the experience, right? And know and can speak to what we're dealing with. So again, we're not focusing on the past. We're not focusing on trauma. We are creating the future, compelling futures, as Tony Robbins, our mentor, would say. And it's just a beautiful thing to be able to move. And Vicki was describing earlier the universal laws. I really love the universal laws. Like once I learned about them, you can manifest anything that you want, and those laws are serious. So she was talking about law of attraction, the law of manifestation, and the law of visualization. So check it out, look them up. We're not going to talk about that today. But sister, again, thank you so much for coming into our podcast, our talk show tonight, having that courageous conversation. And we just honor you for the space that you took tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me be here. It was an honor.
Thank you. I'm going to close out the podcast, but hold on, okay?